Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's Chris here. And it's Monday, January the 9th, 2017. 2017? Yeah, 2017. Well. I got the, I think I got the audio set up correctly. We'll see. Let me go into the, I don't know what I did last time. It was a rookie mistake. I couldn't believe I did it. I was like, well, anyway. Wow, okay, we've got some folks up in the chat. Guess I'll read off the chat roll. Double 963, Polito Brigante, Mahatma Cope, Matt Sims, Nino 210, Not So Freemason Popcat, Nature Never Lies, Richard Benedict 73, KM and Rochelle Osai Girl, Wave 57, White Raven 119, and West Tennessee. All right, good. Good deal. Richard Benedict 73 says, Happy New Year, Chris. Hey, Happy New Year. Oh, yeah, Happy New Year. Oh, that's what that letter or that number change is, that 2017 was 2016, now it's 2017. Yeah, it's New Year. New Year, everybody. So that's a good thing. I guess it's good. Happy. It's a call for everybody to be happy because you made it through another year. And yeah, I guess it's a good thing. Doop. Gotta read a quote. Shoop. The goal of modern propaganda is no longer to transform opinion, but to arouse an active and mythical belief. The goal of modern propaganda is no longer to transform opinion, but to arouse an active and mythical belief. Attributed to Jacques Ellul. But I don't think I read that one before. I was trying to remember. No, I don't think I did. But anyway, yeah, it's attributed to him, and to arouse that active and mythical belief. So that is what propaganda does, according to Jacques. I think I agree with him on that. I'm pretty sure I agree with him on that. A mythical belief. So, of course, we're witnessing more of the same as by way of the these shootings. Talking to John Adams earlier, and we were just talking about this. He said, "Oh yeah, did you realize that they had a airport shooting in Turkey, or within a few weeks time span of the Orlando nightclub shooting, and then now we're having a airport shooting in the United States, and Turkey just had, and that's a couple of weeks after the nightclub shooting in Turkey." Oh, that's interesting. That might be an avenue of exploration right there to see how many other parallels there are between that, because that's interesting, yeah. If I recall correctly, it's almost kind of within the same general kind of time frame. Like they had the Orlando, and it was like 2 weeks later an airport shooting, or was it a bombing? Maybe it was a bombing. But a terror attack, allegedly. So I haven't looked that much into it. It gets kind of old hat going through these things and picking them apart. There's just some things that stand out. What did they announce? That the dude flew in on Air Canada, and then Air Canada puts out a tweet that says, no record of this guy. Never heard of him. Nope, no bags checked, nothing, no record. That's pretty interesting. Now, of course, that can all be chalked up to just the misinformation. Different, some wires got crossed in communication, and they didn't know it wasn't Air Canada or something like that. That's so far I haven't ran across anything with this particular one that is really outstanding insofar as it would prove the thing being fake. And then I've thought about this too, that we're so, at least on this side of the fence, we're so kind of predisposed to see something like that and automatically jump to the conclusion that, oh, well, that must be another fake, that we'll just naturally assume that it must be fake. And not saying that this is not saying it's real, not saying it's fake either. I'm just saying that I don't know. I wasn't there. That's what I normally say. There's in certain cases, there's just too many things that stand out that would allow me to accept it being real. So far in this thing, I haven't really looked into it that extensively, but I've looked at several videos out there. I looked at a couple of things, and not to name names, but there is a lot of really not too well thought out analysis of these things. Like, as an example, I'm pretty sure this individual took the video down after they posted it, but then they will say, oh, well, here's the same actor playing two roles in this event. And it's like, well, you could interpret it that way, but when there's an when it's so easy to explain it away by saying, well, the people were stranded at this airport, and then one person made a change. Since you got your luggage with you or a bag with you, you can change into a hat, you can change into a vest or whatever. There's nothing at all really suspicious about that at all. And then you can get interviewed later. I'm kind of milling around in the airport, so I might get interviewed a couple of times. Like, that's nothing to point out as an anomaly, really. But yet, you have people out here like really eager to find anything that's incongruent or anything like that, and they'll just kind of got to the point now where I don't know what it is, like people trying to beat each other to the punch or what it is. It's competition. They're just trying to stir up controversy around any and everything, trying to prove fakery. And I am sort of dismayed by the lack of caution or discretion or in these analysis. I think it is like really detrimental to trying to demonstrate that these are perhaps could well be fake. Some of it's really good, and then in the process of making some bad points, it makes some really good points. So it's kind of mixed, but I just wish people would be more reserved, and say, hey, if there's another possible explanation where it can easily be explained away, don't hammer on it as being significant. It's just good. It's just good form. It's not something to really help. It's not something that's going to really help your cause when you're going out there and just kind of going off half-cocked and just jumping on anything that comes up as looking a little bit out of place. It's sort of commonplace though now especially on the YouTube. But I did post a couple of videos. There was one Red Silver J's videos about they were going to have legislation come up about this very thing. And it's like, yeah, okay. So that is definitely noteworthy, no doubt about it. But surprising, no. So I say, yeah, no, okay. It's not surprising. It's just not surprising at all. Typical timing of this stuff. It's like just perfect timing for some legislation or something like that. And this happens over and over again. Same thing with Sandy Hook. I don't know if it ever got through or what, but there's supposedly some United Nations gun proposal thing that leading up into the Sandy Hook thing too. But then again, somebody can say, oh, that's coincidence because there's always stuff going through houses of Congress, either state or local or whatever. So, and did they find any evidence of a drill taking place? I didn't run across anything. Not saying it's a real event, not saying, but then it's the, like I said, it's probably not good to jump to conclusions on this stuff because if you think about it, and again, I'm not saying this thing is real, but they could throw in an event where people actually get shot. Now, they said 5 got killed and some other number of people got injured. 9 got injured or something like that. I don't know. But that would seem to be consistent with something you might actually see in an actual shooting. So it's quite the contrast from, like in Virginia Tech, 33 dead, or in Orlando, like 50 dead. So, I mean, there's that too. And there is footage of people bleeding out on the floor. It's easy to miss if you don't scrutinize it closely. But yeah, I did notice that. It looked like somebody, blood on their face, laying on, whether it's fake blood or real, I don't know. And here's the thing. It's like special effects and this moulage. Moulage is the art of putting fake wounds on people and make it look real. That's a highly developed art form, and you can't distinguish it from a real wound. Like in the case of the Boston bombing, though, whatever they used to simulate blood looked more like paint than blood. But then, see, the way to dismiss that would say, Chris, you're not a doctor. Well, I know what blood looks like, and it didn't look like that. So, all consistent one color. It oxidizes really quick and turns brown. But anyway, so I was going to do a little bit of reading this evening because I know that you got these events and they're shooting events and stuff like that, but like I said, it's kind of old hat. And whatever the case, this is obviously set up. So, I mean, it's obviously staged, with the legislation and they're proposing, which their reaction doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, we need to pass laws so people can't, that's what people are calling for. Oh, we don't want to be able people to carry a gun on their check-on baggage on a plane flight. Well, you're picking up your luggage at the baggage claim, which is not a secured area at the airport. Anybody who's been in the airport knows that that's not a secure area. You get your baggage, you go out of the gate, you get off the plane, you go out of the gate, you go down the hall, you go past the security. You don't have to pass through security on the way out. You just pass by and you go on out to the luggage claim and you get your luggage. And there's no security there. There's no guards at the door or anything like that. It's just open area. You don't have to go through screening to get in there or anything. So, like, what damn difference does it make in reality? Well, see, it doesn't have to touch on reality. That's what I keep pointing out about this stuff. It doesn't. I mean, the laws and stuff that they're proposing and stuff like that doesn't have to even remotely have any real, tangible, perceptible benefit in relation to them. But you'll notice, like, when they implement a law, it will. I had a good example. I was trying to think of, okay. Oh, so you take your shoes off at the airport screening, and then, they do the screening and all that stuff. And then see, they brought all this stuff in reaction to the Richard Reed shoe bomber and the underwear bomber guy. Remember that? So, we need to do this and that. We have more TSA, and we need to have screening, and we need to have you take your shoes off, and we do that. And so, like, after that, all those types of so-called terror attacks stopped, right? We haven't heard of anything like that since then. Just by magically passing a law and doing this stuff, it just stops all that. They don't even try anymore to get on there with explosive shoes or anything like that. And they'll say, well, Chris, TSA is doing their job. They're stopping the terror. Well, not according to other stuff you read. Like, you can pull up the TSA. They run tests on the TSA, and they try to smuggle stuff in as a test, Let's see how effective they are. And according to these articles I was reading, it's like 95% failure rate. So how are they stopping anybody from getting on that plane that wants to do anything bad? Well, they're not. But you notice still it stopped anyway. So when they pass gun laws or whatever, then like they did in Australia, then there was no more mass shootings. So you're trying to tell me in Australia when they banned guns after the so-called Port Arthur, I could probably pronounce it, but then my pronunciation will be different from Aussies, right? So it doesn't matter. Whatever. Excuse me. When they pass a law and then people turn their rifles in or their guns in, their firearms in, then there was no more mass shootings. So here is where you have to switch your brain over into fantasy thinking, as if you magically pass a law and then magically the bad guy that has bad intent that also has a gun, he's going to start obeying the law and turn his gun in so that there won't be any more mass shootings after that. Does that make any damn sense? No, absolutely not. But still, to see the mass shootings stop, didn't they? Did that mean so it must have worked? All the bad guys turn their guns in. Oh, man, we passed a magical law, the one that the bad guys actually obey. See, we told you it would work. Oh, of course it works. Of course it works. Because the shit's staged. And then you stop staging it after you get your way. Easy. It's easy to figure it out. But, I was looking at the Cashless Society. And I want to read, I think I might read probably half of this. I was reading this earlier. Fairly long for our internet article. It's called The Rise of the Cashless City. There is this real danger of exclusion. The danger of exclusion, like bums on the street. You can't give them change if you don't have any change, right? Anyway, it says, scrolling through my online bank statements at Christmas, I was surprised to find that I had not removed cash from an ATM for well over 4 months. Thanks to the ubiquity of electronic payment systems, it has become increasingly easy to glide around London to a chorus of approving bleeps. As more shops and transport networks adapt to contactless cards and touch-and-go mobile technology, many major cities around the world are in the process of regulating cash to second-class status. Some London shops and cafes are now, like the capital buses, simply refusing to handle notes or coins. Could we see the whole city go cash-free from Seoul to Bergamo? Cities big and small are at the forefront of global drive to go digital. Many of us are happy to tap cards or phones to hop on a bus, but buy a coffee or pay for groceries. But it raises the prospect of a time we no longer carry cash at all. No spare change for the busker at the station, the person sleeping rough in need of a hot drink, the market trader, the donation box, although even on street charity fundraisers are now broaching the world of contactless payments. What might the rise of Cashless City mean for street vendors, small merchants, and the poorest inhabitants? Some experts now fear a two-tiered urban realm in which those on the lowest incomes become disconnected from mainstream commercial life by their dependence on traditional forms of currency. Quote, the beauty of cash is that it is a direct, simple transaction between all kinds of different people, no matter how rich or poor, unquote, explains financial writer Dominic Frisby. If you begin to insist on cashlessness, it puts pressure on you to be banked and sign up to a financial system, and many of the poorest are likely to remain out of that system, so there is a real danger of exclusion, unquote. Oh. In India, the question of how the poorest might connect to the digitized world of middle-class consumer is now of central importance. In November, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the removal of 500 to 1,000 rupee notes from circulation. part of a wider attempt to jolt the nation into joining the cashless revolution. Modi's government believes restricting currency and pushing the take-up of electronic payment will help tackle corruption and regulate India's untaxed, quote-unquote, black economy. Saurabh Shukla, the Delhi-based editor-in-chief of the news Mobile Asia, says he has seen many small mom-and-pop, quote-unquote, store owners introduce card readers and learn how to use Paytm, a mobile payment platform, over the past 2 months. They realize a big change is here, and they're trying to adjust to electronic payment, he explains, but they still want to convert back to cash at the end of the working day or the working week. It will be a gradual adjustment. We might not be able to create a completely cashless India, but we can aim to create a low-cash economy. And so it goes on. I'm going to read this one part about, they're talking about Zimbabwe. They're talking about Kenya, going cashless, Scandinavia. Like Scandinavia, we're close to becoming cashless in Amsterdam. He says, I am an optimist, but we really need bright people in the tech companies to come up with simple, convenient solutions that work for everyone. We cannot let people become cut off from the life of the city. Says Kenya may offer guiding light here, having found a way to allow unbanked citizens access to the cashless society using cheap mobiles. Launched in 2007, M-Pesa has become the world's leading mobile money platform, allowing millions of users to transfer money to each other by sending text messages and store their funds digitally without opening a conventional bank account. That's interesting. So I was going to read this one part. Skipped over several paragraphs. So yet even Sweden has seen an enthusiasm gap emerge, mostly along demographic lines. Older people in the rural north, tending to be the least tech-savvy, resent the economic power of Stockholm and Gothenburg, now almost entirely cash-free urban zones. The National Pensioners Organization is a key player in the, quote, cash uprising, unquote, coalition, now campaigning to make sure older Swedes can still deposit and remove cash from banks. So apparently these European cities are mostly all cashless now. And you got this big push in India that 1,500 rupee notes are being just snatched them out of circulation, the government. I think that is like roughly the equivalent of our $10, $20 bill. You imagine that, just like, oh, no more $10 bills, no more $20 bills. That would be drastic, wouldn't it? But that's what they're doing in India. And I read this other article where, they just started pushing all this stuff through and implementing it, taking cash out of circulation. And there was still all these people that were trying to use cash, and they had to stand in line and get paid and all that. They didn't have bank accounts and stuff like that. Thousands and thousands of people in India. And they're just ramrodding this crap through, which is interesting because it's like, wow, they really seem like they just jumped the gun and just started implementing this stuff without thinking it through, it seems like. I guess they think everybody will just kind of conform and fall in line, but I don't know. I think there's probably going to be some fallout from that where people are going to say, no, screw that. And they'll open it up like black markets for, maybe counterfeit currency or some alternative currency or something like that. Because I don't think people are just going to readily adopt some kind of unfamiliar technology just overnight, just like that. That's probably not going to happen. But anyway, apparently this is going forward quite rapidly. I wasn't aware that these European cities are almost 100% cashless. I don't know about 100%, but mainly cashless. Like you go into a place and they don't even take cash. In the United States, every place I ever go to takes cash. I don't want any places that don't take cash. I still use cash, but I probably use my bank card too much, but I still use cash. It's just nice to have cash on hand. But yeah, with that said, I was reading out of Jay Dyer's book, The Esoteric Hollywood, the Sex Cults and Symbols in Film. And this chapter here, chapter 9, goes with what I was just talking about. And it's a pretty short chapter. I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then I'll go to caller enters. Spielberg's Minority Report is another important film to link to our present discussion. Based on the short story by visionary science fiction author Philip K. Dick, Spielberg's film version implements an important number of predictive programming elements not found in Dick. Both are worth a look, as some years later we are actually seeing the implementation of the total technocratic takeover, including pre-crime tracking systems. Although the film and the short story present precognition as a metaphysical mystery by telepathic individuals who can see into the ether, the real pre-crime systems are based on AI and the digitizing of all records under total information awareness. Contrary to popular belief, this was DARPA's plan for the Internet all along. DARPA states as follows concerning its creation and reason for its existence. The Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik showed that a fundamental change was needed in American defense science and technology programs. DARPA was formed to meet this need and rejuvenated our defense technological capabilities, unquote. In fact, a close friend worked for a few years digitizing mass medical records, and while most are aware of Google's attempts to digitize all books, if they were aware, the why would be unfathomable. I've warned for several years that the end goal of all this digitization is not efficiency, quote unquote, and trendy iWatches, Fitbits, etc., to monitor heart rates and location. The ultimate goal is total mind control, loss of free will, and the complete rewrite of all past history. Consider, for example, the power the system will wield with the ability to delete, quote unquote, all past versions of literature, religious texts, Shakespeare, 1984. Nothing will be sacred and unable to be, quote unquote, revised. Remember that in 2009, Amazon erased Orwell's 1984. Yeah, I remember that. Your own past may even be deleted, subject to revision or altered to make you the next villain. All this is revealed in detail in Minority Report. Thus, while the public adopts Kindle's, quote unquote, print itself is assigned the doom of the kindled fire, like Fahrenheit 451, as Richard Grove has said. Minority Report's setting is a 2055 dystopic Washington, D.C., where Agent John Anderton, Tom Cruise, is framed for 2 murders from within his own pre-crime corporation ranks by the CEO, Lamar Burgess. Max von Sydow. Note, the existing system appears to be a merger of private and government sectors. I'm sure most readers have seen the film, so I'll spare you the detailed plot recaps and hit the highlights for the sake of our purposes. The film's pre-crime alerts a private corporation to an impending murder event ahead of time, giving the agents of the corporation time to save victims. Hailed as the perfect system, the infallibility of the pre-crime has made D.C. the safest city in the world with no murders for several years. As a result, the pre-crime tests require a total surveillance society, something akin to complete panopticism. In fact, the advertising in D.C. is user-specific, targeting pedestrians' personal desires based on retina scans. And all travel requires retinal scanning and mass microchipping. We are now on the verge of the implementation of retinal scanning. As the U.S. military is engaged in retinal scanning in occupied territory for several years now, it is important to understand that the actions of the military abroad are often a testing ground for the implementation of such surveillance and tracking technology at home, quote unquote. In October 2010, The Guardian reported of U.S. troops stationed in Afghanistan With each iris and fingertip scan, the device gave the operator a steady rising percentage chance that the goat herder was on an electronic watch list, quote unquote, of suspects. Although it never reached 100%, it was enough for the man to be taken to the nearest U.S. outpost for interrogation. Since the Guardian witnessed the incident, which occurred near the southern city of Kandahar earlier this year, U.S. soldiers have been dramatically increasing the vast database of biometric information collected from Afghans living in the most war-torn parts of southern and eastern Afghanistan. The U.S. Army now has information on 800,000 people, while another database developed by the country's Interior Ministry has records on 250,000 people. Wired magazine reported millions were the actual goal. The goal is not millions, but the entire globe, where any and all information is now currency for big data, quote unquote. This is exactly the World Minority Report foresaw. And for those curious about Philip K. Dick, whispers are his foresight was due to being well connected with the Silicon Valley elites. This is how Ubik foresaw the quote-unquote Internet of Things, as well as Isaac Asimov's foundation, Slate writes of Ubik. Samsung, the world's largest manufacturer of televisions, tells customers in its privacy policy that personal or other sensitive quote-unquote conversations will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party. Through the TV voice recognition software. Welcome to the Internet of Things. Sci-fi great Philip K. Dick warned us about this decades ago in his classic 1969 novel Ubik. The characters have to negotiate the way they move and how they communicate with inanimate objects that monitor them, lock them out, and force payments. Wow. 1969. Just as the predictive algorithm in Asimov's foundation was able to track mass movement, so now the same algorithmic tracking is in place across the web of things, quote unquote, that are capable of being recorded and tracked, and that's most things. The Pentagon has a virtual you in real-time 3D interface that updates its data consistently from everything done on the web. The Register reported in 2009 about this simulated warfare and predictive software. Defense analysts can understand the repercussions of the proposed recommendations for policy options or military actions by interacting with a virtual world environment, write the researchers. They can propose a policy option and walk skeptical commanders through a virtual world where the commander can literally see, quote unquote, how things might play out. This process gives the commander a view of the most likely strengths and weaknesses of any particular course of action. It's not telepathic Samantha Morton in a tub of goo. It's Google and DARPA developing highly advanced technology along the lines of what William Binney exposed as former NSA employee. Think here of the films War Games, 1983, where the AI bot was able to wargame future scenarios of global thermonuclear war, but thankfully Ferris Bueller was there to save us. If this was displayed in 1983 in pop culture, imagine how far that technology has come 30 years later, lest anyone think that the pre-crime, quote-unquote, is merely for security and weekend Xbox enjoyment. Capitalism, communism, nationalism, 401ks, blah, 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 all these things are basically obsolete. Why? Because of the nature of the real secret high-tech plans for mega smart cities that are to come. You think you are getting ahead and climbing the social ladder, and you aren't even aware that the CEO of IBM, Jenny Romedy, gives lectures about smart cities where everything you do will be rationed, tracked, and traced by the central supercomputers with pre-crime determining whether you are guilty of crime think. So everything you are trusting in is already obsolete. You think I'm exaggerating? On the contrary, you and your children's futures are determined. You don't have a future. And if you're allowed to live past the great culling, you will essentially be boxed into a giant Walmart, Target, GameStop, University City that will literally be run by a supercomputer. Lest anyone think that pre-crime is a thing of the future, consider that it has been used for 2 years in the UK. 21st Century Wire reports. That's the hope of the police in the U.S., who have begun using advanced software to analyze crime data in conjunction with emails, text messages, chat files, and CCTV recordings acquired by law enforcement. The system developed by Wynyard, a firm based in Auckland, New Zealand, could even look at social media in real time in an attempt to predict where the gang might strike next. We're trying to get the source of the mastermind behind the criminal activity. That's why we're setting up a database so everybody can provide the necessary information to help us get higher up the chain, says Craig Blanton of the Marion County Sheriff's Office in Indiana. Because felony lane gang members move from state to state, they stay one step ahead of the centralized database. It's primed to aggregate historical information on the group and search for patterns in their movements, Blanton says. Quote, we know where they have been, where they are currently, and where they may go in the future, he says. I think had we not taken on this challenge, we, along with the other 110 impacted agencies, would be doing our own thing without better knowledge of how this group operates. It's not only the system the police forces have at their disposal. PredPol, which was developed by mathematician George Moeller at Santa Clara University in California, has been widely adopted in the U.S. and U.K. The software analysis recorded crime based on date, place, category of offense, and then generates daily suggestions for locations that should be patrolled by officers, depending on where it calculates criminal activity it is most likely to occur. Now, a couple of more paragraphs here. I had to get a drink of water. All right. Returning to the film, an interesting tidbit occurs about 3 times, I've noticed. Anytime Anderton and his fellow agents access the temple, the holding side of the telepathic precogs, the sound made is distinctly the iPhone power-on sound. The first iPod premiered in 2001, so I'm assuming this is the same sound for turning on, but readers can correct me. I find it curious, if not, since the sound would likely be chosen for a reason. If you've ever seen the important Spike Jonze film, Her, you'll see why. In Her, lead character Theodore Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with an iOS, his operating system. The iOS of the future is an intelligent software system with capability for learning, like the AI in war games, and ultimately transcends its own limitations. I bring this up because Minority Report is distinctly dominated by eye imagery, while seemingly insignificant is my opinion that Siri and Apple in particular are crucial in the implementation of the coming new order. Apple ads have contained a distinctly esoteric and significant cultural referent. And the 1984 Apple Super Bowl ad was no accident. The year of the revelation of the Mac for home computing was accompanied by an ad that proclaimed George Orwell's 1984 had arrived. This is not to say Microsoft or any other tech giants are insignificant. On the contrary, I believe they are all arms of one entity, and the appearance of competition is largely illusory. I believe in and profess one military-industrial complex, and DARPA and Google and Apple and Microsoft are its sons. The facade of competition is enough to advance the technology by the tech nerds that serve it, but in the end, it all serves the same system. My point here is that the iPhone is much more than an iPhone. It is actually an IEYE phone, functioning as the Eye of Sauron himself as AI reconnaissance before the takeover. Tech whispers are the iPhone of the next few years, which will contain a Siri that communicates with you like a personal assistant. TechGen Mag describes it directly in connection to the film Her, noting that Viv, the IV, will do the following. On the other hand, not only will Viv recognize disparate requests, she will also be able to put them together. Basically, Viv is Siri with the ability to learn. The project is being kept heavily under wraps, but the guys at Viv have hinted they are working towards creating a quote-unquote global brain, unquote, a shared source of artificial intelligence that's as readily accessible as heat or electricity. It's unclear how soon a breakthrough of this magnitude can happen, but if this team made Siri, you can bet their next project is going to blow the tech world to pieces. In order to endear the public to that idea, a prototype Siri had to be offered. While this may be a rumor, it will eventually come, and the dystopic scenario presented in Her will meet the nightmare of Minority Report. For now, it all seems harmless, though we see a generation of youth mentally destroyed by screens and pads, Steve Jobs didn't even let his own kids play with an iPad. But the end goal, I assure you, is nefarious. The dominant ideology of these tech giants is pure and total dysgenics, not eugenics. In order for the total rewrite to come, the existing structure must be destroyed. The, quote, old way, unquote, of doing things will be scapegoated as the technocracy replaces it, offering utopia and salvation. But the synthetic rewrite is a Trojan horse. Humanity will be enslaved in the same virtual matrix which entraps Anderton. The film's tagline, which pops up numerous times in the story, is about running. Quote, everybody runs, unquote. And John spends most of his film on the run from the very system he operated. The film asks the question multiple times, quote, can you see, unquote? And when we think of this on a deeper level in terms of predictive programming, I think we are intended to look beyond the immediate narrative. There are also numerous hat tips to Blade Runner, where again the running, quote unquote, imagery comes to the fore. Can we run from the panopticon? Do we have the eyes that are infallibly, quote unquote, surveilling us? So there you go. That's chapter 9 of Esoteric Hollywood. J. Dyer. That is what we're looking at as far as all this technology that's everywhere now. If anybody's wondering what's going on, that seems to be the case. I would concur with all of that and would say that we're seeing I was going to use a word, but I think of another word. I was going to say quickening, I guess, but I don't like that word. But anyway, a definite push towards this. I mean, you're seeing this, like India, for crying out loud. Yeah, they're getting all their rural people. This article talks about the digital army to help villagers switch to a cashless system. This Times of India. This is Rakat. The Rakat District Administration will unleash its digital army in a bid to encourage to train people in rural areas to switch over to cashless transactions. The move comes after demonetization of the 500,000 rupees currency notes by the union government. The digital army will also train traders and small vendors in using electronic mode for receiving payments using swiping machines and e-wallets. So, yeah, it goes on to talk about how, yeah, they're sending out armies to get people in line. So this looks like a big, big push to get India just about completely cashless, it looks like. Cashless, yeah. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. I haven't been looking at the chat when I've been reading. I noticed we got West Tennessee on hold, Northwest Indiana, and Rich Destroy. Let me play the bumper. Oh, well, I want to see. What the fuck is this?
It's your benefactor, nigga.
And that sound is the notification to thank the donors. Thank my donors who sent donations. Richard, Jennifer, Jan, Patrick, Peter, and Kay Ahmad. Yeah, thank you very much for sending donations. That's great. Help me out here to maintain operations, everything operational in the accordance. And I appreciate that. Very much appreciated. And let's see. We'll play a bumper, and we'll go to caller enters.
bound to classify you as unmutual.
That's correct.
Call. Hoax Busters Call. Join the discussion by dialing 724-444-7444. Call ID 90337.
That's a direct order. Do it now.
Well. West Tennessee. How you doing?
Chris, this is Larry Nichols. I can't believe you'd quote the book of that son of a bitch, Dyer.
You don't approve, Larry? I don't understand.
Chris, back when I was working for Bill and Hillary, I went down to Tennessee from Arkansas, and I saw that Dyer boy, and he was at a witch ritual.
No kidding. That's yeah, I heard about that.
He's a rat bastard.
Who is? I'm sorry, Larry?
That bastard that you're reading his book.
Oh, you have an issue with Jay? I was not aware of that.
I went down to Tennessee and saw that boy a witch ritual. He was riding a broom.
So you called him out as a witch. That's interesting. I was not aware of that.
He's a man witch. A lot of people think a witch gotta have a vagina. It ain't true.
Yeah, man witch. Those aren't bad. I mean, if you're as far as barbecue sandwiches go, but
that's what I mean. A man witch.
If he's into that, I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, man witches, barbecue sandwiches are all right. I mean, my book.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, man?
I don't know much.
So your impressions are so good, I just get sucked into it. It's like I'm talking to Larry Nichols. I'm really talking to Larry Nichols. I'm not talking to Jay doing Larry Nichols.
Is that little bumper that you play, is that Alan Watts saying, that's right?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, that's what I was always trying to figure out what that little bumper is.
Yeah, that's Alan Watts.
And then the other one is Alex. Is it Alex saying, "Go ahead," or you're
go
on,
ahead,
or something like that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Alex. Do you hear this one?
Go ahead. Tell me how the cow ate the cabbage.
Oh man,
the clippable Jones.
Thanks for reading some of our book. I appreciate that. That was cool.
Yeah, and this is not coordinated, by the way, because you haven't called in a couple of calls, but I had this all ready to go before I even. Believe it or not, none of this is pre-planned or scripted.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I had a lot of big kind of life changes going recently, so I haven't been able to be on. But yeah, I think kind of getting all that. Things are maybe settling back down.
Like life changes, like did you like change your
gender? Yeah.
Gender or anything like that?
Got it lopped off.
Oh, you went ahead with a full-blown operation and everything? Wow. Yeah, that is a big move.
I still got it. It's kind of like when you get your teeth removed, you put it under your pillow. Well, I got my thing lopped off, and it's like, well, my thing's like the size of a pillow already, so it's pretty big pillow kind of underneath the pillow already, but I'm waiting for the Dick Fairy.
Dick Fairy to come and cash in on a. Yeah, they gave you like a. What is it? A ballistics case to carry it around in, or something like that.
It's an a giant attaché case.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot going on, man. And then a book, and then you're signing books, and you got all that going on. And so, how's it going on the book, by the way?
It's good. It's a lot of work to do your own shipping. So I wasn't really expecting a lot of that to happen, but that's kind of how it played out. So, I guess it just comes with the territory of being your own boss. I got to do a lot of the shipping. I think Dave McGowan had to do that too. So that's kind of what he was faced with when he started doing his books. So, that's another layer to it where you got to kind of be in charge of shipping stuff as well as trying to do all this other stuff. So,
how do you end up shipping it? Isn't not on Amazon too, and some distribution places as shipping it yourself?
All of that is there, but the author makes way better on copies that they sell direct. Because I get them from a discount from the publisher. I mean, there's like a percentage that I get from whatever sold on Amazon as well, but I make I make a lot better when I sell somebody a copy direct from me, and then a lot of the authors who do this kind of stuff don't work as hard at trying to build an audience and have a continual stream of content coming out. So they don't really have they just don't put the time into building an audience, which I did in the last year or so. That made it a lot easier. I mean, I'm not like selling millions of copies, but that made it easier to get copies out on my own because I already had a pretty good bit of traffic going to my website. And anyway,
all those cashless transactions coming in.
Yeah,
everything is digitized now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not huge. I ship out a few dozen a week.
Not bad.
Yeah.
That's good. It's
thinking about the next one. Thinking maybe there'll be Esoteric Hollywood 2, where I'll do some new ones and see how that goes.
Well, I offer my services as a graphic designer if you need one. I do book covers.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually. I had a buddy.
Yeah, I could send you a sample of my work.
Well, I had a buddy who designed the cover last time, and the publisher insisted on doing their cover, so I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the publisher did a completely different cover?
Yeah. I mean, it's an actual contract, so you're limited in terms of what you decide. Like you have full say-so of the content of the book, but I had absolutely nothing to do with like the covers or anything like that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I did get Patrick to do the quote on the back, but that was my thing I was able to do. So, but yeah, I think it's a thing where you could have a sequel pretty easy and it might work.
Yeah, depending on how well the first one does, do a sequel, huh? Part.
And it's only been 3 or 4 weeks, so it's not been officially out for even that long. So anyway. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I've considered doing something like that, but it's a big undertaking. I understand that. Yeah, I mean, I was listening to you talk about documentary. I thought that'd be a great idea, given your skill set. Yeah, I was thinking I could put something together and then maybe put part of it out and then put part of it out as on a donation basis or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I need to eventually get another computer and do some stuff I have to upgrade because my
my shit's getting really it's just hard. It's harder to do things when you're using a 10-year-old computer, but
yeah, I was using an HP laptop for like the last 3 years of data analysis, and the laptop was like 3 years old, and it was kind of getting to where it was difficult, and there was all these sound issues, and the sound card was having problems, and so I saved up from subscribers, last about 2 or 3 months ago. I got a nice Mac, so that really does help quite a bit with putting out content, because it was getting really difficult on an older laptop to try to do everything.
Yeah, processing video takes forever, huh? When you're using older.
Exactly.
Like putting together, like the way the software is putting it together is okay, but then like trying to, and then that you have to like set your computer aside for like an hour, 45 minutes, even a short video. How to get it to process a dang thing just sucks up. Like I was looking at my CPU and it's using like 115% CPU. It's like I didn't even know it could do 115% CPU, but yeah, you can't do anything else when that's going. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, man. So, are you cashless yourself?
What do you mean?
Have you gone? Do you use the?
Yeah, I actually got a gold tooth with a chip in it, and that's how they convinced me to get it. Like the government said, we want you as a test subject for our first cashless citizen with a microchip implant. And I said, well, only on one condition, that it be in my gold tooth, and they agreed to it. So now, like when I go to the pub, the bar, the club, I just kind of like stick my teeth out and scan, and that's how I get in. That's how I pay for stuff. So yes,
it's very convenient because your tooth is always there. You don't have to go hunting for it or anything. It's just in your mouth.
And it's stylish.
Silent too, yeah. Well, I noticed now when you go, I just went to the store earlier today and they were saying, "Oh, if you have the chip, just swipe it on the thing." That was the first time I've heard that, because they don't normally tell you that. They said, but I had not
experienced that until we drove to LA a few months ago in the summer, and most of the restaurants or bars or whatever you're at out there, they're like, just swipe your chip. I wasn't expecting this when I got there, and I was like, what? And they're like, just swipe the chip. And I'm like, I don't have a chip. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, your card doesn't have a chip. I said, no. Should it?
I don't even know if mine does or not. I don't think it does. Will it say it on the card, or is it just in there?
I think if you have a newer, debit card or whatever, presumably there's a chip. I don't know.
I don't know either. Maybe mine has it on there and it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I should try wiping it.
But there was a place that they didn't want cash either. No, I remember what it was. They were like, it was a restaurant in this area called the Grove or something like that. This is like where all these. It's kind of a nicer area of Hollywood where a lot of the famous people go and eat, and hence that's why I was there. No, I'm joking. It was just me and getting eating there, but there's a lot of good organic restaurants and stuff there. Anyway, so we were at this one place, and they were like, "Yeah, you gotta swipe the chip or pay cash. We don't take any other kind of debit card." And I was like, well, I just have a regular debit card. I can't pay for my dinner with that. And they're like, no, but you can go get cash. So I had to go find an ATM to pay for dinner. At this,
really?
Yeah, it was very bizarre. And the point being is that they obviously they don't think hardly anybody's going to go get cash. The whole point of it is just to have the card with the chip, right?
Yeah. I that's odd though that they wouldn't even let you swipe it or enter the number or anything. You had to go get cash and come back.
They were just saying it wouldn't take it. They're like, oh, yeah, we can't read cards without chips. And I was like, I just can't use a regular debit card / credit card. And they're like, nope. I was like, so how am I supposed to pay for dinner? And they're like, well, you go find an ATM.
Huh. No, I never experienced that. That's the first I've heard of that. So in these particular areas, they're phasing it in, I guess.
Yes, that's what I think.
Yeah. It's so hip and cool, though, right? It's
well, this is like the hip LA area, or this is like right in the middle of Hollywood. You've got a lot of ritzy type people there. I mean, this wasn't like a super elite restaurant. It was just a regular, bar steakhouse place. $30, $40 meal. But most of the stuff down there is organic, and it's a very, like you said, kind of trendy area. And so that's usually where they phase this kind of stuff in, is, the trendy green organic area. Which I'm all for organic stuff, but unfortunately that is also where they phase in a lot of this, Agenda 21, cashless, green, sustainability crap.
Oh, absolutely. That's how it starts. It's hip and cool and trendy, and then everybody, I wish I had that where I live.
Right.
And then it becomes something desirable just by way of it being there first, and then it's just going to get just gradually phased in.
Right.
And then there won't be any more. Then they'll start talking about pulling currency out of circulation here, I guess. I don't know. Because so much stuff is dependent on cash. It's hard to imagine that would be implemented here.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that. I've heard you talk about that, and I think that's a good point. It'd be very difficult to completely get rid of that, which is, I guess, why they try to have these test areas where they see how quickly or how well they can, phase it in or whatever.
From what I could tell about this thing in India, where they're making this real big push to get everybody cashless, I think the way it's looking, it's going to fail. I mean, that's not going to take. I don't think.
Just because of the difficulty, or you think people won't go for it?
I just don't think people are going to go for it. I think people will come up with other ways, something else. Because what are they saying? They're going to, because everybody doesn't carry a phone, do they? I mean, bums on the street now, I guess, carry a phone.
That's a good point.
They're saying this is other thing that I was reading about it. There's so many people there that don't even have phones, and they don't carry phones. So now they're going to just require everybody to have a phone or something to do all these cashless transactions. That I don't see. Sounds to me like they really made a pretty substantial misjudgment of the whole situation. Looks like, I don't know. Could well be. It could just the bottom drop out of all of it. As far as in India, these other places where they're trying to force it down people's throats.
Well, it reminds me of the conversation that I think last time I was on, you and John and I were having, where we were talking about some of the difficulties of surveillance. It's kind of like, even if you build up a giant surveillance grid and surveillance state, I mean, are you going to have like one bureaucrat per citizen? I mean, it's almost undoable. So you have to have all this technology that's going to integrate all this surveillance data. But I mean, even then, it's like, who is going to sift through all this shit? And then, what do you? I mean, in other words, there's just, I think, a problem of manpower for, they can't surveil everybody. There's a lot of people out there. So that's part of the problem, I think, is you still have to have human elements running a lot of this stuff. And I think it's very difficult to get everybody to be, totally controlled or totally locked into all of this and buying into all of it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying what I'm thinking very well, but yeah, I think you get my point. It's like,
no, right? Yeah, I agree. I think it is easier dreamed up than actually implementing it.
Yes. Yeah. There you go.
It's like a lot of people are on Facebook, and I can't use Facebook. I don't. It locks up my browser more frequently than I like. So it for some reason, I don't know. But I kind of minimize my exposure to that and some other stuff. But I noticed like a lot of people are on there. People that I wouldn't think that would be on there are on there.
Well, it's like I had a conversation with Patrick about this one time, and he made a good point that it's like, do they spy on you through Facebook? Yeah, but what are they going to do with 1 billion people on Facebook? I mean, it's like, how exactly would they go about, getting you, so to speak? And as we've said many times on this show, if the establishment wants to, quote, get you, they don't need Facebook. They can just get you, whatever that may mean. So, you're not really, if you have no interest in it or don't need it for networking and stuff, for me, it's become, unfortunately, a decent part of my traffic now. So, if like Facebook banned me or something like that, which could happen at any time, that would damage my traffic a little bit. It wouldn't put me down for good, but, anything like that could damage you. But, it's like, well, you can either just kind of not worry about it, and I don't mean that in the sense of, like if you listen to Alan Watt, you're like, you're not going to walk outside of your house because something's going to get you. But at the same time, it's like, well, what good is it even doing me to be overly afraid of all these things, right? So I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of the surveillance state, but it's also a very difficult operation, the surveillance state. What are they going to do? You know what I mean? And also, it's like John and I were talking about a lot of the maybe the more prominent so-called conspiracy theorists. They always kind of have this narrative where they're at the center of, David Rockefeller's plans. You know what I mean? Like David Rockefeller really has it out for, like Fritz Springmeier or something, right? Like they're the target of a giant conspiracy. And I'm not saying that individuals can't be targeted, but it's kind of like applying the same principle to the targeted individuals. It's like, I think it's a big overestimation of your importance, to think that there's all these agents after you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what to make of the targeted individual thing, but I think it is. I think there's something to it, but it is. Yeah, right. Like you're saying, though, there's not going to be like all this attention on one individual as if one individual is such a threat to the system. It's if anything, it's just some type of psychological operation as some kind of maybe a test or a way to. I thought about this because you probably know more about this than I'm sure you know more about this than I do about the Mao's Cultural Revolution and the way that they had they would have those like terror campaigns, and then there would be like teenagers going around and terrorizing the older people. And I was reading some of that, and it sounded an awful lot like the targeted individual thing. And I was thinking, well, why is that done? What's the point of it? And I got to thinking, well, if they can get this thing, something like that going as a program, it kind of puts out this undercurrent of fear and distrust in the overall culture, wouldn't you think, in society? Not directly, but sort of indirectly, where you have enough of this type of thing going on to where it kind of has a ripple effect out into the culture.
Yeah, that's funny you said that. I've been looking into this model because I've been reading Brandon Turbeville's book on Syria. So he basically collected all of his articles on Syria into an ebook, and I've been reading through that the past couple of days, and it's pretty good. And one of the things he talks about that kind of coalesced with a couple of conversations I had was this idea of the swarming model that the RAND Corporation worked out, and they call it swarming mobs of adolescents. I'm not joking, that's what they call it.
Really?
Yes, and so if you look up the RAND Corporation document on swarming, which is real and it's public, okay, this ties into models and techniques of what they've done with the Arab Spring. So this is very popular with the hashtag revolutions and the Black Lives Matter type of stuff that we see nowadays. All of these models are the same, and I never even thought about this, but he made a great point that when you go back to these John Negroponte, who organized the Latin American death squads, as they're called, whatever's true about all that, the story at least is that they kind of terrorized people with these gangs of special ops trained guys and paramilitary dudes and all this stuff. And this is all part of Iran-Contra and all that, but the whole point was that these Contras and these death squads were trained to just sort of randomly enact havoc. And so that would supposedly at least assassinations, which could be staged or real. Regardless, it would be in the news, and then of course people would be like, "Oh, there's random, terrorists that are going around killing people, so be afraid." Or they would harass people, or they would follow them, or they would stalk them. So this is actually, I believe, a technology, and I think that it ties into what we see now with the color revolutions and the way they get those going. And Brandon makes this argument in his book. This is what they tried to do in Syria was what they did like in Egypt with the color revolution in Egypt is so they'll have these people embedded already in the country for a while, working under the cover of NGOs and like last call you did where you guys were talking about Pussy Riot. It's these kinds of people, these shady people from the deep state who are suddenly in some stupid fucking punk band. Yeah, right, give me a break. And then they're like out, protesting with their titties bouncing around, right, and shit like this. And so what does this do? Well, it riles up and it agitates. It gets people. Some people, right, are recruited into these NGOs, and they think that they're, doing like human rights activism and all this kind of stuff. And there's just tons and tons of these human rights type quote organizations, and they're always going to be directed by the same types of models, the same, pre-printed sort of signs, for protesting and all this kind of stuff. And you had this sort of demagogue guy who would go out and lead everybody out into the square, and they're chanting and stuff like this. And like you were talking about last call with the woman who was talking about the Black Lives Matter in the mall. So I think it's all the same model, and I think what you're talking about with the way that they would do stuff in the Cultural Revolution is very similar to what you're talking about maybe at times with the targeted individual, is that they'll just kind of have these sort of mobs or rent-a-mob. I'm not saying that they're like real revolutionary mobs, but they're like created. And they do go around and, bullhorn or shit like that. And it does intimidate people. And then, like with the Weather Underground, the news reports on it, and it gives the impression, like John was saying, there's this giant revolution brewing or something, which is probably not true, but the news legitimizes it and gives it the impression that there's all these people involved in it. And what that RAND Corporation document shows is that it's an actual thing that they studied, and they do tie it into like the Twitter hashtags, and they tie it into all this crap to try to see, if they can, motivate and move large sections of the population in some direction.
Yeah, it is a form of street theater, whatever you want to call it, where it can generate, it change people's perceptions, like this. The Trump protesters and all that, and then you go into Craigslist and they have all those ads out to come and work for MoveOn.org and all that.
Yes.
Full well that's tied to those protests. You know damn well it is, and so that it's essentially a rental mob. So they're paid to go out and do this stuff.
Yes.
And and then so in reality, there isn't. I really doubt. I know people were fired up about Trump winning and all that. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of real sentiment out there surrounding the elections and all that. But I just don't buy the idea that there are that many people riled up enough to actively take to the streets. There's just no way. Now, some, I'm sure, will be motivated enough to do it. But, it just makes so much more sense that like you're saying, you got all these NGOs and all these groups out there, and then you got these groups like Move On and these other organizations, and they're normally always going to be tied into foundation funding and all of that, or so they're bankrolled by another crazy thing that's put out there is that these foundations were set up because like Carnegie and the Rockefellers, all that, they live their whole life as these cutthroat capitalists that and robber barons, and then they get older and they get soft-hearted, Jay, and they want to just give all their vast fortune away to helping people. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice? And then, but this is the shit. This is the result. You get all this fake protest and just demonstrations and all that, and then it always kind of ties back into these tax-exempt foundations and these these it seems mostly like leftist organizations that are funded by these, Ford Foundation and all that, right?
You just watched that little 3-minute clip on YouTube from Professor. What's that guy's name? Ugly ass Gene Sharp, who's the head of the Albert Einstein Institute. And it's that 3-minute. I've posted it in a bunch of articles. It's been going on for a while now, but it's a documentary about him, and he's the Princeton professor who specializes in creating fake revolutions. So it's like, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is open. You can, you just look at that RAND Corporation swarming document. You can just Google that and find it. It comes up really easy. I also picked up an Oxford University book a couple of weeks ago. I think I talked about it on somebody's radio show, but it's an actual analysis of how revolutions are done nowadays. So it's kind of supposedly written from this sort of objective textbook view, but they talk about the hashtag revolution. Here it is. It's called The Marketing of Revolution. Marketing Rebellion, Insurgents, Media, and International Activism by Clifford Robb. And it's a Cambridge University book. And they go on and go into all this too. So this is like who is this dude? Well, he's one of these, like, he writes for foreign policy and all this globalist crap. And so, he's just writing a book. Oh, yeah, this is how we do all this with all the NGOs and other chapters on NGOs and how to, spread democracy to all these other countries. And it was just complete bullshit, but it does show the democracy part, but it does show how. I'm just really amazed at how scientific it all is.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember like 6 years ago listening to Jones, and I remember it was the first time I came across the Gene Sharp guy, and I think Alex was talking about like Webster Tarpley or somebody, I don't remember who, but they were talking about Egypt and how they were trying to start this Arab Spring in Egypt, and I remember Alex was citing Kissinger because Kissinger said this was the first act of a play in that region, and that you will see Acts 2 and 3 of this play. You can still find that Kissinger quote, by the way. It's still on Google, at least it was pretty recently. And so that was when I was really starting to question, what we were seeing in modern day revolutions. That was the first time I heard of NGOs. I didn't really know what any of that stuff was, and then I started looking at this Gene Sharp character, and when you look into him, it just becomes patently obvious. He's just like, oh yeah, I know how to market a revolution and how to recruit the people and how to get them to think that, basically that it's all fake, right? And so what these people don't realize is, they're actually participating in the foreign policy objectives of, the Washington oligarchs and bankers and so forth. And so, yeah, they probably do have a corrupt leader or president, but they don't realize that, all this money is being poured into their, quote, revolution by a foreign power who wants something probably even worse. You know what I mean? And I think that what's amazing is that the science or technology of revolution has been studied for a long time. You know what I mean? It goes back, you can read James Billington's book on, French Revolution. That's kind of a classic. And then you got, like you said, with Mao, Mao was working for Yale. So that was like Skull and Bones operation with Mao. So, Skull and Bonesmen, they were studying the technique of destroying a culture through revolution back then with Mao. So, they know how to do this very well. And Twitter and Facebook and this stuff, Google. And the Google guy even admitted that he was tweaking the algorithms to get the Arab Spring going. He was like publicly bragging about that. So yeah, this is how it works. This is how they do this stuff. And it's no different, by the way, with Pussy Riot or with Femin or with the way ISIS does
Code
stuff.
Pink.
Yes, Code Pink, exactly. They did the same technique, the same strategy. It's a technology of how this is how you do regime change now. Like, you don't necessarily have to have this coup or anything like that. You do it through the soft power technique.
Yeah, soft power. That's what that word popped in my head right before you said it. Yeah, it's these the appearance of a grassroots movement, but it's nothing of the sort. And then they could come back in and say, well, this is a result of this movement. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't even have any real influence because it's just this orchestrated, contrived thing. And then you think about, well, what does that do? Well, it just creates the perceptions in the average person's mind that, oh, this is what happened, and these changes are a byproduct of this event or occurrence. But they're not even, it doesn't even really have any bearing on what the changes that were later brought about, that were ostensibly brought about in response to that. It's just that it's like it's almost like the oligarchs get together, they decide on the implementation, some program, and then to perceive that, they have to have a bit of theater of the mind to generate the perception of everybody, the reasoning or the logic behind going forward with the new program.
Yeah, and I can't believe. This was brand new to me. Last night, I'm actually reading 2 books on Syria. I was reading Brandon's, and I'm also reading. There's a free book that Tony Cartolucci did that he put out for everybody if they want to read it. It's like 100 pages, but he's talking about Libya and Syria. And I can't believe this, but so the Brookings Institute, right, which is one of these top think tanks like Rand and Carnegie and all that. So in 2011, they literally wrote a piece called Libya's Test of the New International Order. And when you read this thing, they literally just say, okay, we got to topple Gaddafi's government and reintegrate Libya into the international New World Order. That's what they say. So now I'm not saying that I think Gaddafi was like a totally compromised, corrupt dude. But I also think that that doesn't mean that they didn't really come in and fuck that place up. Now, maybe that death was even staged. I don't know. But I do think they fucked that place up so that they could come in and then, rebuild it with Halliburton or whoever and all that. But I'm just amazed that, they'll just write like the CFR did the same thing. I've posted this article many times. Al-Qaeda specter in Syria, prior to ISIS and all this stuff in Syria, it was 2011 or 12. The CFR just puts up an article about, we need to move radical Islamists into Syria. Now, again, I know that there's not like a real ISIS out there. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I do think that they are fucking these places up. I really do believe that. Mm-hmm. These guys like this one, like McCain goes and meets with these people. Like there's pictures of McCain just hanging out with these people, and I don't think those are fake. They're real. You look at this General Salim Idris character, and he's just hanging out with McCain, and he's like, we got to topple this government. We got to change things here because they have chemical weapons. Right? I was reading some of these older articles like before the Syria situation really got going. And, all this stuff's still online. You can still find it. And it's just all out in the open. But they know, I know this sounds kind of Alex Jonesy, but they know nobody knows what the Brookings Institute is. They're not going to read that. They don't care what the CFR articles say. So they just do whatever they want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can just, talk among themselves about it fairly openly, knowing that the average person is going to get their information from CNN, ABC, MSNBC. And it even in our so-called information age, this still just goes on. It's like that white helmet thing is just mind-boggling. You could see the videos where they're clearly staging this crap. It's just so so obvious.
It's unreal.
It's so obvious. And then, but at the same time, they're real. They're presented by the fake media as real. And say, this is, and then policies and stuff will be implemented based on, what allegedly is going on over there in regards to all that as far as Syria goes. I don't really know that much about what, I understand that they want to implement so-called regime change, right, with taking Assad out, putting somebody else in.
Yeah, and I do believe, you can look at this Brookings Institute piece called Libya's Test of the New International Order, and that was from February 2011, and they lay out from their Doha Center, as it's called, what they're going to do in Libya. And I think they really did that. And that does not mean that I think that, I'm not saying Gaddafi was a good guy, but I really think they did that. I really think they changed that country. You can look at the pictures of, which I don't think are fake, of, Libya before and after 2011. You know what I mean? When Hillary's on TV talking about destroying the place, I think she really did that. Now, but again, I'm not saying that Gaddafi was a hero in his weird form of green socialism or whatever kind of weirdness he had going was like ideal or anything like that. But I think they did reduce this place to, to a more radical Islamic type of government. That's what they wanted, at least according to all these neocons and these types of people. And I think this follows with the Seven Nation Plan. I think it follows with the Oded Yinon plan of Israel wanting microstates in the region back from the 80s, talking about this stuff. So, again, as we said many times, in my view, you can have the corrupt rulers of these places. I think Saddam was totally corrupt in bed with the West, but it doesn't mean that they don't really, reorganize these places and bomb them, and then the defense contractors come in and rebuild. As to exactly which bombing scenarios are faked or real, or I'm not sure, but I just look at the fact that, for example, where did they put the giant new CENTCOM base? Isn't that near Iraq somewhere? They just built this giant CENTCOM base that wasn't there before.
So they go in, and we talked about this before on past calls when Marcus Allen used to come on the call, how a lot of the stuff you look at, and it's more or less a land clear. So they come in and then bring in it. I guess that's a Masonic thing: out with the old, in with the new.
I would say so, absolutely, yeah.
So you remove the old landmarks and the old cultural references and everything, and you bring in the new, and that's part of the transition into whatever new phase they want to bring and bring to these regions, and they just restructure them. But I believe the whole thing is orchestrated, and it's with the full complicity of the people at the, like Gaddafi and those people.
Mm-hmm.
His death might have even been potentially faked, maybe, but I don't know. He might have been taken out for real. I don't know, but I do believe that the like Assad and those people at the so-called leaders of these countries, they are complicit with all this on one level. They're sort of, yeah.
My working theory right now is that, like, if you read Miles Copeland's book Game of Nations, he argues that the CIA had an older plan of using Arab nationalism. So for a while, like even Nasser of Egypt kind of worked with the CIA, and then you look at the what's his name that followed after the Shah, the Ayatollah right after the Shah, I forget his name.
Mossadegh.
Well, Mossadegh was taken out, and then they put the Shah
they installed Shah after Mossadegh.
The Shah is the CIA's dude, like openly everybody admits that. But then the Shah got old and expired, and the CIA went ahead and made a deal with the Ayatollah, who came back in to take his place. I think his name's the Ayatollah Kashani. There's a whole bunch of Ayatollahs. It gets really confusing, but I think that's who it was. Anyway, he was a CIA kind of bought-off dude, too. So what they did in that case, I think, was they just kind of sniffed where the wind was blowing, and then they realized some of these things that the Shah did was unpopular, and then they didn't like what he might do, and so they just kind of prepped for the return of this Islamic leader type guy, and they either bought him off or paid him. And there's scholarly books that back that up, like Stephen Dorrell's book on MI6. But so what I think the situation with like the Ba'athist Party is that it was set up with the aid of the CIA. And
that was considered sort of a secularist.
Yes, Arab nationalism, and then Saddam's was in this, and that he was trained by the CIA, and he was put into this role of the Ba'athist guy, and then Assad's dad was a Ba'athist, and Assad is in the Ba'athist Party. So, but I do think you had a change of policy in the Middle East. So back in the 40s and 50s, there was a more positive attitude on some of these CIA people for Arab nationalism, which was, like you said, is this kind of secular approach. But then the idea was, no, actually, to better combat during the, quote, Cold War, we could do a lot better with the Muslim Brotherhood / quote, jihad types, that kind of Islam, that Saudi Arabian Salafist Wahhabist view, because they believe in God. And a lot of these secular types, they may not. So what I'm getting at is just that I think they adopted that British model, and there was things going on in the 40s and 50s that backed this up, like with William Stevenson and Ian Fleming and Noel Coward and these British agents that were, really heavily trying to get the U.S. into World War II and then into the Cold War. And so when the U.S. was super duper into the, quote, battle of the Cold War, they thought that the Soviets would be recruiting a lot of these Arab nationalists, you see, because it's secular, right? And so Sovietism is supposed to be, a communist, atheist type government. So anyway, I understand that's the dialectics. I'm just saying that I do think there was, on the ground, a change of policy in terms of they weren't interested in Arab nationalism anymore. They were interested in the Muslim Brotherhood, Salafist type view. And so they did bring these people in and, try to rearrange these regions. And I think we're still seeing that. We're still seeing Saudi Arabia and Qatar and United Arab Emirates and the Gulf Arab theocracies try to topple the Arab nationalist type setups with the aid of the CIA and the West and the foundations. And so none of that means that Assad is this great hero or anything like that. That's just kind of how I see it playing out at this point, given my research. And I could be wrong. It could be like an even crazier dialectic or something that I'm not seeing. But I really do think you had, even if Gorbachev I think Gorbachev was ultimately a Western agent. And Rockefeller would go to China, communist China. So I think those were controlled at the top. But when it played out on the, quote, chessboard, you really do have people changing their regimes, in my view. There really were Soviets that were trying to get Nasser on their side. We're trying to get, one of these other leaders on their side. And the CIA actually would try to get people on their side. Right? I mean, you did have these real things happen in Latin America or Central America where, even if take the Cuban Revolution, even if it's staged, there really was a sense in which you couldn't go to Cuba. You know what I mean?
Right. Can you go there now? Yeah, you can go there.
Yeah, you can now. Yeah.
Is this immediately following the death of Castro, or is this?
Yeah, isn't that weird? And again, I believe that's all fake. But
oh yeah.
But for people on the ground, you can't go. I couldn't go to Cuba if I wanted to.
No, you couldn't.
No.
Pre-Castro died.
Pre-death of Fidel.
And then his son took over, right?
As I understand, yeah.
Was it Margaret? It'd be Margaret Trudeau, his grandson, then. No, they look a lot like the Trudeau and Castro, like they're siblings, I guess, maybe. Would you think?
So let me ask you this: so Brzezinski, for example, in Grand Chessboard, he'll back in the late '90s, '98 or so, he'll say, we got to spark, revolutions in these Eastern European countries. I mean, don't you think he really meant that? I'm not challenging you. I'm just curious what your view is.
I think that it is. Well, I referenced that film, The Network, where they're going into how everything is there isn't no nations, there's just one big dominion of dollars. And so when they implement these so-called revolutions, I think it is more of theater for the masses. It's a way to and they do tear shit up. They do tear,
Right.
like you're saying, they tear stuff up and blow stuff up, and that's all real. I don't go into any of that. We're saying all war is fake and all that. I don't buy that. No, there's real stuff that goes on, and there's real. It's like the Fletcher Prouty talked about in the
yes, right.
in that book, where they would stage these. They do the street theater with the purpose of saying that this person was assassinated or overthrown or had something to do with their doing it in front of the people in that region so that they could implement whatever they wanted to implement. But see, it was fake and staged, so it doesn't really have any real influence on things other than on people's minds, right? So when they see a change develop later, it'll be, oh, that was because of that. But see, that was just a bit of theater. I'm not saying that these color revolutions are all theater, but they're set up.
Yes.
And they may even result in people dying or people actually, getting involved in like real conflict and everything. I think there is a lot of real conflict going on over there. And I think a lot of it probably has more to do with old tribal rivalries and stuff that have been ongoing for centuries, and then they have upset and balance of power, and then those things get re-stirred back up, and they use that to some strategic advantage, just to restructure and reorganize the area, region, or what have you.
I tend to believe also that you could have real conflicts over, for example, where a pipeline might go. What do you think?
Right, yeah, because it's all during the midst of all this. There's all these business transactions taking place with arms, with oil pipelines, and with all that other stuff. So you got the corporations are intimately involved in all this, and then they really do receive a payout. They have benefits and everything from participating in these restructuring. I would call them just a restructuring. It's like a business operation, more or less, where we're just going to go into this. Let's say a corporation has a central headquarters, which is a modern office building, and they say, okay, on the third floor, which would represent maybe the Middle East, figuratively speaking, and then we're just going to go in and we're going to reorganize the furniture, and we're going to switch some management positions around, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And that's I think that's from the way I understand all this is probably the best analogy I could come up with, where you're not really ever seeing a real shift in power. It's the same people are in power, same people orchestrating all this stuff, but the purpose is the same. It's the same purpose behind conducting these fake flags and all that in the United States. It's all. I think it falls under the same umbrella, generally speaking, which is this perception management, because they're going to implement policies and stuff in response to these things, right? At some degree or another. And
so
and I think that
this. And here's something I tend to believe that might be debatable. So, like, if there's a region, so I will take the Syria situation. I tend to believe, and I'm willing to be corrected, I tend to believe that also what might fuel that conflict is the question of who would supply energy to Europe. And this is a big part of a lot of that conflict between whether corporations in Russia or whether Western oil corporations would have access to, putting natural gas lines or pipelines, energy pipelines from, like the Caspian Sea into Europe, because that's a huge market. So, do you think that's also manufactured? Do you think that could be a legitimate conflict?
Well, I think you have analogs here, and under our so-called democracy, you'll see, I was just talking about this with Kay about our representatives and what they do. Well, they bring in jobs into the region, right? So you elect them, they go to represent you. And what is it mainly that they'll end up doing, and something that makes them popular so they'll keep getting, quote unquote, reelected is, they like Tom Cole is the representative here in Oklahoma for this region, and he brings in like basically some armored personnel carrier manufacturing out here at Elgin that's 20 miles north of town out here, all this different stuff. So and I think because the CFR will refer to these different countries like Syria and Iraq stuff, they call them states, right?
Right. So
we're already in a world government. I believe that we're already under a world government.
Yeah.
And the way and the way to view these states, it's more of sort of I think you could rightfully view them in the same way that you view states in the United States. Now you have like, we'll bring in industry here. Tom Cole's going to get his jobs. He's going to do this and that and the other thing. And yeah, jobs really do come here, and benefits are derived from that. And then, but it's all, it's business, and it's politics are tied at the hip. They're just like a Siamese twins. Actually, it's all right. Part of the same show. Same thing with these so-called nation states, but it's more. I think the difference is it's more it's more radical. It's more there's actual bloodshed and real contention over these things like pipelines and stuff like that to a higher degree. But it's still the same kind of general overall effect. As far as will it affect the outcome of the so-called balance of power? I think there's just as much a balance of power differences between like California and Texas as there is between Syria and Britain, or you see what I'm saying? It's kind of, they're all states already. It's just that there are certain disputed things that are being sort of hammered out in the process of this.
Like, I think you could probably argue that what's happening in Syria, like you might could argue that is a confrontation between two corporations claiming the right to that area. And is it going to be a Russian-based Gazprom sort of thing, or is it going to be like Dutch Royal, BP Shell or something?
Yeah, and then I think we have the same thing here with these, our representative could get us a plant in here, and like, and maybe like Tennessee, like your boy over there, Jay, really wanted that to go down Tennessee. And like your people and like his constituent stuff will really be upset about it. Now you won't come over here with like machetes and like start hacking up Okies.
Well, no.
Hopefully.
So what this means is if you're Assad, then if Russia is going to offer you maybe $1 billion, right, for a pipeline, and BP says, nah, we'll give you $500 million. You know what I mean? Like that might swing your whose side you're on in that regard.
Yeah, and I think all that stuff is real. I do.
And you're saying that it's analogous to like the governor of, I forget what his name is, the governor of Tennessee, he wants, I don't know, a Toyota plant to come, to Tennessee, and, he's going to get some kind of kickback for that. But then the guy in, Oklahoma talks him into a better deal, and so Toyota comes to Oklahoma.
And he gets it because he's better connected with the right people at the higher tiers of the club. Hey, the same thing goes on over in the Middle East, everywhere. It's just these business and they're actually contested. I think that's actually a real thing. But then, it may come down to blows there, wherein it wouldn't happen here. That's just not the way it's done. This is like you'll see in like Japanese parliament or European parliament. Like they'll have the heated debates and they'll go to blows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how much of that is staged, I don't know, but I think maybe they actually go to blows. And I think what they're fighting over is sort of this they're presiding over the honeypot, right? The big taxpayer. I mean, all the money that goes into all that, and yeah, it gets heated. I'm sure it gets heated in Congress and stuff over this stuff too. And then that also creates the perception that there's really something at stake, which there actually in reality is. With
but it's not what
to
the
a certain degree.
think it is.
No. There's not going to be any kind of real fundamental change or shift in the power base or anything like that. And I think the same holds true for these so-called nation states.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. There is real conflict and there is real resources and infrastructure and stuff that being contested, like where it's going to go. There's real stuff at stake. Yeah, I believe that.
The Brookings Institute thing about Libya hints at that. It basically says that the resources of Gaddafi's Libya need to be, I think it uses the word something like reintegrated into the global economy. In other words, we want to steal what he's maybe stashed there, basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that goes on, and I think that to some degree or another, that will represent more in, they're still sort of jockeying for position in the already pre-established hierarchy. It's not a representation of going off the plantation, per se. It's more of there are contested positions of influence that take place. And then there's some sorting out, like the Turkish diplomat guy that got executed, right? Now he was an ambassador from Turkey to Russia.
The Karlov character that supposedly got assassinated.
Yeah, the most recent one where
yes, he was formerly the ambassador to North Korea, which is pretty hilarious in itself. But
oh, really?
Yeah, and then he's the ambassador to Turkey, and I tend to think that was staged. Yes,
staged, and then to actually kill the dude, and then
I don't know that. I mean, he could have been killed. I'm not saying he couldn't have been, but just from the evidence of that scene, it looks to me like it was staged. But I don't know what to make of that, because I mean, he was like on some sort of pro-Assad delegation, and he was trying to, as the story goes at least, argue for the Russian position in Syria. So, I mean, at least according to that narrative, it makes sense why he might be assassinated, to sort of mess up what's happening in Syria. But I mean, who knows? We never know with this kind of spy type stuff. There's just different possibilities. But I tend to believe it was staged, just based on the photographic imagery evidence that's put forward.
I thought the guy I'll admit I don't know. Look, I don't have a grand explanation for that. So if it's staged, why? I don't know. I mean, is it just to promote the impression that all this is real, or I don't know. And I'm comfortable admitting when I don't know something. Yeah, because we could be looking at something we're not the demographic to be viewing it. It's like watching a television show that's like, it's maybe has some real fringe demographic that you're just not going to. You can watch it and you can see it and you can respond to it, but you're not going to really get it. And I think like psychological operations are multi-tiered, and they have different stuff happening in them, yeah, for different demographics, and then for the average person, they're just going to get sort of the cursory examination of it, and it's going to be dictated to them what that all means that we need to do. Like we need to have restrictions on guns in airports. It's just more restrictions of freedoms, and then we're supposed to all just accept it as part of, oh, well, that's just the way it is now, and it's, we don't want to get you don't want to get shot in the airport, even though that, like I was talking about earlier, that would have absolutely no bearing on whether or not you got shot in the airport if somebody decides to walk in from the outside.
Yeah, I do think in some of these cases there may have been actual just instances of crime, and then I think the intelligence agencies or the establishment have just slapped ISIS on it, and they just say, "Oh, he said Allah Akbar." Now, I think a lot of them are fake, right, and completely staged. We dissected the Orlando nightclub thing. I see that one. Tend to see that one like the Boston bombing type thing. But I also think it's possible that at times there might be a real, like some thug holds up a liquor store or something, right, and then maybe somebody gets shot or a gun goes off, and then the feds or somebody, oh, it was an ISIS attack, perhaps. We heard him say Allah Akbar.
So they take real crime and then tie it in. That's what they've been trying to do. They've been trying
that. I think they could.
Oh, sure, yeah.
do that in some cases. I can't say that I definitively know in any of these cases that they've actually done that, because I tend to think, most of what we're shown in these big high-profile ones are very much staged. But I think there's also different ways they could go about these kinds of events. I think they could have a New Bird Sting type situation where they get these four black dudes that are kind of dumb and make them look like terrorists, and then have all the pageantry. Or I think they could have actors, like with the Orlando guy, where there might be just some violent crime somewhere, and they just slap the title ISIS on it.
Sure. I don't rule out the idea that.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say I don't rule out the idea that there could be something like this airport shooting, and then actually people got shot. I don't think it's. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying that you can't automatically rule that out. I don't think it's.
So like when there was the Chattanooga so-called shooting, one of the problems with researching this is that whenever they declare those national security, the local cops don't have any information, and so you can't look into it. Like, you can't request a death certificate from the police. They're not going to give it to you because it's under national security, because it's terror. So there's no way to know.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I saw with this airport thing. It said that the Broward County or whatever sheriff's department had jurisdiction over the investigation. I thought, well, that's odd. Like, why didn't the FBI come in and take it over? So that it made me think, oh, this is different. So maybe people actually got shot. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's just there's some peculiar things about this that doesn't line up with what we've seen in the past. Because usually in the past, it's like, oh, the feds, oh, it's terror. We come in and take over the whole thing.
Exactly.
And not
and I thought it was very, very suspicious that the claim is that he heard voices in his head that ISIS told him to join ISIS. I mean, that smacks of just absurdity right there.
The CIA made him watch ISIS videos. You hear that?
I don't know what to make of that. I'm not saying it's that part of it's true or false, but it immediately raises red flags, like something's fishy here. And Sean Helton, I thought, wrote a very cautioned article on it, where he just basically raised all the oddities about it. And his piece was really good. So I would agree with Sean's take on it, where he didn't really make any pronouncements. He just said, this is odd. And the timing is odd, and with these bills that they're talking about, guns in airports and stuff, and suddenly this. And I do think the timing of these ISIS attacks is oftentimes a good indicator, too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the timing
why did ISIS take the whole summer off?
For the elections,
or
and then they...
no, excuse me, wait, not summer, but there was like a several-month period. I think we talked about it, right? Like where maybe after...
Yeah, like during the elections.
There you go, the elections. Yeah, I think you made that point. You're like, was ISIS on... You posted a video, so ISIS is on vacation.
They took a break. Just no terror, no shootings, no nothing. And then that's when the elections got really ramped up. And then now that we got our new mascot, and he's going to be... They got to give him a crisis, right? So we can concretize the idea that, this is our new leader. He's taking charge. I like his quotes. He's a great president as far as presidents go, because I already like his. What did he quoted as saying? Like on the hacking thing, he says like I know a lot about hacking.
His other funny comment about the internet was good. This whole age of the internet thing has made it to where we don't know what the heck's going on. I don't know. I don't like it. It's the whole age of the internet thing, quote unquote.
Age of the internet thing. But he knows about hacking, Jay, and I don't know. It just struck me as funny because they had him talking. It's our first comedian president. None of these other people are very funny. Not that funny. I didn't think Obama was that funny.
No, he wasn't.
But yeah, I think yeah. Trump.
Did you see Trump with Don King? That was hilarious.
Recently, no.
No, go watch.
Trump and Don King.
That's the clip I'm talking about. Pull up Trump, Don King. It's like 2 minutes. It's so funny, dude. That's where they say, what do you think about cybersecurity? And Trump goes, oh, yes, the internet, that whole thing, the age of the internet. I'm not a big fan. We don't know what's going on. And he's standing there with Don King. I'm not joking. Who's got all this bling on. And Don King's got like 5 flags that he's holding. It's like, I'm not joking. You got to watch it to believe it. It's total comedy.
Well, the first thing that comes up, Don King uses the N-word while introducing Trump. Drops the N-word.
It's like a 1 or 2 minute clip with him with Don King where they ask him about cybersecurity or something.
Let me see if I can play it. I want to see if I can play it. Yeah, this whole age of the internet thing. Oh man. What? Is it on video?
Should be on YouTube. I found it pretty easy.
Donald Trump's speech on cybersecurity. Oh, that's an hour long. Okay.
Put Donald Trump, Don King. There's like a 1 or 2 minute clip with him coming out with flags and bling.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm getting...
Somebody brought it up on Boiler Room, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And then I pulled it up, and I was not let down.
I got it. Don King uses the N-word. Well, let's see what that says. Maybe that's it. Is Don King going to get a cabinet position? Is that what's happening here?
He should be presidential advisor to entertainment.
The press secretary or something. I'm getting speeches by Don King, and yeah, these are all 18 minutes long.
I'll mail it to you if I find it.
All right, yeah. Amazing, amazing. The Donald. So they got him in there, and he's going to make America great again. I'm looking forward to that. So he's kind of backed off on building a wall. So I don't guess he's going to build the wall. It went from building the wall to patching the fence. So I think we're.
Is that what he said? I haven't kept up. I heard he was going to build the wall.
That he's still going to build it?
I heard that, but I don't know. I haven't kept up with Trump. I've been busy.
Yeah, I've heard different stuff. I've heard that he's going to build it, but then, of course, the U.S. taxpayers are going to pay for it, not Mexico. And then I heard something else that he's not going to build it. We're just going to fix the fence that we got. Maybe get send some trucks to Home Depot, pick up some chain link, take it down there, done. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, do we really want a fence? We know that it will keep people in as well as out. I may want to get the F out of Dodge. I don't know.
Okay, I found that clip. It's called Trump. Computers complicate lives. That's it.
Okay. Let's see. Computers complicate lives. Over here.
If you play the CNN clip, there's an annoying ad. So beware of it.
Ad, okay.
Let's
see. My goodness. It's just loading and loading and loading. Where's the video? Oh, here it is. Wow, they got a ad intensive site. I got ad blocker on and it's still just loading ad after ad. Now it's loading the video. Now it's loading the advertisement in the video. Scooby-doop-doo, doo-doop-doop-doop, doo-doop-doo, bop-bop-bop. Spinning logo, spinning logo, spinning logo. Dude, what is the deal, man?
All right. Yeah, so go to one. If you can go to 1 minute in that. 1 minute.
Okay.
That clip.
Hopefully I can switch over to the...
I think, the whole this age of computer thing, it's made it to where nobody knows exactly what's going on. It's,
Let's see if it... Okay, come on. Now the ad plays perfect, and then it's like the...
President Obama ordering strong and far-reaching retaliation against Russia for its unprecedented cyber attack on the U.S. election system. The U.S. is imposing sanctions against 9 Russian...
Shut up. I'd already played that and reloaded another video before I could even get set up. It's just these ads, man. Dang.
Yeah, they're awful.
Oh, they make it where the internet now, you can't even look at anything. It's just that... I think Trump is right, man. Computers. Fucking me up. I know that. Okay, I don't guess this is going to happen. This is not going to happen. It's just not. It's just... I think I'm pushing my system to the ultimate limits, too. I don't want to crash. No, it's too bad. Too bad. Well, so you got anything in the works? New? Brand new? I know you got some good interviews that you recently go on the different.
I'm working on getting an interview with Syrian girl. I think she's an interesting and pretty hot character. So
now, who's this again?
You know, Syrian girl.
Syrian girl.
Mm-hmm.
Is she the one that Twitters from Syria?
No, not the agitprop girl. Syrian girl, the hot chick that Jones used to have on all the time, and her name's Mimi. And anyway, her family is the other political party of Assad. I forget what the party was. Anyway, but she has been kind of explaining the Syria crisis from the pro-Syria side over the last 5 or 6 years. Anyway, she's really hot, and she's usually got pretty good videos, I think, pretty good analysis of stuff. And she's gotten real popular over the last several years. And so anyway, I had messaged her a while back. I was like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? And I didn't hear back from her for months. She never did say anything. And then she finally was like, yeah, just hit me up. So I'm trying to get her to do an interview because she's from Syria. So I thought she might be good to talk to. And so hopefully that'll come together. And I was thinking about writing an analysis of Back to the Future just because there is some weird stuff. And I've really been trying to figure out if I buy the Back to the Future 9/11 thing. I kind of do, but I kind of don't. I don't know. I can't make up my mind if I think the Back to the Future 2 was really talking about 9/11. I mean, maybe kind of half and half on that one. So anyway, that's really all that's been on my mind lately is that stuff. And I talked to Jay Wiedner yesterday, and we were talking about doing this TV show, and I was having to wait on him to figure out the legalities of it to see what kind of clips we could play movie-wise.
Uh-huh.
And apparently the law is you can play 15 seconds of a clip, and then you have to break it up. So anyway, but that was good news because I was kind of waiting. I didn't know if everything was going to be greenlit. But that's all going to happen.
What is that deal? Okay, when people do documentaries, I'll see them inset a clip into, like, say, some sort of frame. Like you'll see like maybe a television set sitting on the dresser drawer or whatever, and then the clip is playing on the TV. Is that for some kind of copyright reason? People do that. Do you get by copyright if you do that?
That's a good question. I wouldn't think so because I've tried certain things like that, and I've still gotten flagged a couple times by YouTube, so I don't know. But I mean, YouTube's algorithm may not be the exact same as legality or something like that. But I mean, in this case, they actually had a lawyer, whoever the lawyer is for the company that Jay worked for, look into what clips they could use for a TV show. So we will have to, which is not, I don't think it'd be too difficult because you can always work around. Like if you can only do a 15-second clip, then all you got to do is come back to me and him talking about the film and then go back to it. You know what I mean? Like you could do a different clip. So it's not, you can work around that kind of stuff. But I guess this is because was on a streaming platform and is on Apple TV and stuff like that, and it won't be on YouTube. They had to look into it from a different legal angle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway,
I'm bringing
short, we will be doing that, and we've kind of laid out the first season of the show, the first 13 episodes, and I think we're going to do kind of some of the more obvious classic type stuff. We'll do a Blade Runner episode. We'll do a Matrix episode, probably Twin Peaks episode. Minority Report, probably what you were reading. That'll probably be some of the content for an episode. So anyway, that was all good news for me because I was kind of nervous about whether that was going to actually come about, and it looks like it is. So
where is this going to be aired on a? How's it going to be distributed?
So Gaia TV, which is kind of new agey, but they're like a streaming service. It's where Sean Stone does his buzzsaw. So there's like, if you
have to subscribe to it.
Yeah, that's the thing with how they do it, is that their whole thing is like kind of like Netflix, basically. Do
they ever post up? I've seen Sean Stone stuff on YouTube. Does he normally post up his
older show that he did out of LA? They would put it on YouTube, but then his show got bought by Gaia.
Oh, okay.
So the new season of Sean Stone's show is only on Gaia's streaming service.
Okay.
And that's how but when I was up there about a couple months ago to do that, that's why we were in Colorado, was because he was filming his episodes that week, and Joe Atwill was there. I got to meet him. I'd never met him before. We actually got along, so that was cool.
Yeah, and so so that's all green lighted, and then you got to go back up there and do the tapings.
Yeah, that'll be in the next month or so. We'll be doing several episodes. So I don't know if it'll be fly up and fly back, and then fly up and fly back, or if it'll be one thing or what. But they knock those things out pretty quick. It's a very professional kind of corporate setting where you go and you stay in your hotel, and then they send a car and they drive you to this facility in the studio, and you walk in and you get makeup put on you, and then you immediately go into the set, and then they film it for an hour, 30 minutes or whatever, and then you get in the car and you leave. So it's a very very professional type thing. So that was all new to me. I'd never been on a set before or experienced any of that kind of stuff. So, but it's very.
And this is all internet streaming. So this is like a sort of network unto itself online.
They had a whole bunch of yoga. They were basically a big yoga thing. And so, like, if you go in Walmarts or Targets, you'll see Gaia or Gaiam yoga mats and materials.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And then then they started doing like shows, yoga shows and stuff, which I don't know anything about yoga, but they decided they could do better with that, and so they basically sold all of the yoga side of everything, and they put everything into streaming stuff. So they want to try to be like a Netflix with yoga. So they've expanded into trying to have a lot of different content, and so that's how they got Sean Stone to do Buzzsaw, and Sean Stone asked me to come on for this Buzzsaw season that he did, and that's where I met Jay Wiedner and some of the other people there, and we talked about Jay Wiedner likes the book, so he was like, this could actually be a good, like a 13 or 30 episode, depending on what they want to do, show.
Oh.
And I was like, well, heck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds pretty exciting, man. Like you get on some it's nice too, it's gonna be all professionally done, and then you're gonna have some material that's professionally produced and all that. That's
if you go to Jay's analysis, it's still on the front page. There's a post of me on Buzzsaw, and it's like a 2-minute preview of the episode I did with Sean. And so what Jay and I'll be doing will basically be that setup, like just kind of a small. It looks kind of like Alex Jones' studio a little bit if you look at it, and then it'll just be kind of me and him talking, and we'll go to movie clips and come back and talk about it, and then he's hoping that we'll get actual guests and directors and stuff like that, which I think will be really cool. I have no idea who he thinks he can pull. I don't know if he means like somebody famous or if he just means like documentary filmmakers or what he means. But he wants to try to have guests. So.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Steven Spielberg.
I don't think he's
got that.
I don't think he could pull a Spielberg, but I don't know, his Kubrick documentaries, they did pretty well. So.
Oh yeah, those are really famous on the internet, like big time.
So he might have some good connections and be able to get some interesting Hollywood people. I really don't know.
And that'll be coming up in 2017. All that will go down.
He said they want to try to run stuff in March, so that means that we will probably try to film these episodes in February. So
you'll probably go in there and get all these taped within the matter of like a couple of weeks or something like that. They'll be like,
yeah. I mean, that's the first time I went up there 2 months ago. We did 2 shows in one day. And then the next time I went up, I flew up there with Sean. Sean filmed all of his shows in 1 week. So, yeah.
And Jay moving up into the big leagues.
Well, I must be a shill then, right? Like, there's no way you could do any of the stuff you aren't shill.
Get on. Well, see, you got to recategorize all that now because you got streaming services and you got. It's not like cable TV. It's not like you're on CNN. So they got to requalify what is a shill. If you get on, I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is the first, real kind of independent media type thing that I've been asked to be a part of. So, I'm happy. I'm honored to be that people like the book and that they would be interested. I really didn't think that anybody would be that interested, so it's kind of surprising to me. I thought it would be, maybe like a book, kind of like a Dave McGowan style book, which, I mean, Dave has obviously sold way more copies than I have. He's got, tons of really, really good reviews. But I just kind of saw it in that category, and I wouldn't have ever thought that you would have, somebody interested in. I mean, it's not that big of a deal even. I mean, it's, Gaia's not huge. It's not like, like you said, it's not like a CNN show or something like that. It's not. But I think that from the corporate perspective, a lot of people, from a business side of things, they know that, CNN and these kinds of older models of cable TV is kind of fading away, and that people are going to be pretty much moving, I think, to internet-based television for the most part across the board.
Oh, yeah. It seems now they got all these devices that enable all that, where you can, you can just pull it all right directly there. I think that's what's really driving all that forward. It's just the interface of now making it accessible. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, too, podcasts haven't even really peaked as far as listenership, because then again, too, it's the platform where you can have radios and stuff in your car, and you just stream stuff into it or Bluetooth it in there, and all that's really changing the way people listen to radio or anything.
But I'll say another thing too for that, because I got another sort of author, researcher person made a big deal today and called me a shill. Was trying to expose me. Like, all you have to do is, if you consistently put out material and you don't get wrapped up in stupid stuff, people will reach out to you. And that's what I've always found. And most of the stuff that I do in interviews, there's only been a few people that I've reached out to. Most of the people, have reached out to me and said, hey, you want to come on? Like John, came across an article I wrote and said, hey, you want to come on Afternoon Commune? So it's not like, I think until you do this kind of thing, you don't really understand what it's like. You know what I mean? It's not like you have all these connections per se. You just put out this material, people come to you. That's been my experience.
Yeah, same here. Just put it out.
Have been really cool. I mean, I've met some jerks, but you know, I mean, if you're cool, most people are going to be cool to you. It's not that hard to get along with people.
Yeah, you got to be somewhat easy to get along with, and then be able to collaborate. And then, it's got to be done consistently. You have to stay with it. I think a lot of people, they might get into it and they get discouraged and they just stop doing it. And then, like this thing I'm doing here, you know, I didn't have any listeners for like the longest time. I mean, I'm not saying any listeners, but it'd be like a couple of months into it, and then you got like 12 downloads, you know, it just grows, and then you start making connections, and then you start getting people sending you things, people helping you in your research, or hey, check this out or that out, and
then you meet buddies and people want to go hang out. I mean, it's not as labyrinthine and conspiratorial as a lot of people think it is. It's just kind of how it goes. It's natural progression to this stuff. Yeah, when I started blogging, I didn't have any readers. Started blogging in like 2007, 6, and I would just kind of throw up a conspiracy article here and there, and I was listening to Alex Jones all the time. I think after my first blog, after about 3 or 4 years, I finally got it up to like 1,400 readers a day, and then I got kind of sick of it. It was a waste of time. I'm not doing this. And so I quit for a while, and then a couple of years went by, and I was like, maybe I'll start blogging again and just kind of throw my ideas out there. And, you know, and it just kind of, if you keep with it, I just started doing a couple interviews here or there, and it was really shitty quality. I don't know what I was doing, but I was just doing it for fun. I was like, well, it'd be neat to, you know, actually interview somebody, and, you know, somebody's written a book or something. So I just reached out and did a few interviews. I interviewed Jim Marrs, was the first one I did, and obviously I would not agree with most of a lot of what Jim Marrs talks about now, but back in 2007 or so, or 8, I was like, oh yeah, Jim Marrs, police JFK guy, and that was my first interview. But yeah, you know, it just happens. You just kind of meet people, and I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people look at this kind of stuff, and you get real immersed in conspiracy, and then you kind of think everybody's out to get you, and you know, and people are going to screw you over, and yeah, that does happen every now and then. But I don't know. My attitude has changed, I guess, which I'm not as suspicious, I guess, as I would have been maybe 5 years ago when I was starting to, you know, really blog a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well, my approach to it, and I always say this, is that so, like, we have all the, you know, we've had these discussions in the past, and we talk about it, and like, I'm just listening to what you say, Jay, and it's like, what does Jay say? Did he say anything that is needing me to be suspicious of his motives or anything? And I could just say no, because that's the honest truth. And if someone else out there is putting out information or something like that, I'm just listening to what they say. Now there are some people that have some obvious suspicious connections, and then it raises red flags. But then on the other hand, too, it's still about what their content is and what they're putting out. Because it could be. I mean, I've had it leveled at me that, you're former military, and I was like, yeah, I didn't know that was the issue, but apparently with some people it is. And I was enlisted 6 years. I mean, wasn't in military intelligence, none of that shit. Not even an officer. I was enlisted, which is, I was made E4, which is not even typical to make E5, but I didn't even make E5. I didn't, I'm a low rank. It was low, probably about as low on the totem pole as it gets. So, if somebody wants to make something out of that.
Yeah, no, I've had people make something out of, because my dad was a third-class petty officer, which is really low. He was enlisted. So if you don't know about military, you're not really going to be an officer if you're an enlisted person. You got to have at least a master's before you go into military.
Oh, your dad was a third-class petty officer. Yeah, that's what I ended up getting.
Yeah,
what did he got out? Yeah.
He did 4 years of Navy, and then he did 2 years of what do you call it, where they can call you up, reserve or something.
Oh, the other reserves.
So technically, I guess he did 6 years, but really it was when he was actually in school and out on the boat or whatever, the ship, 4 years.
Jay Dyer, issues from a military family, and what else nefarious stuff besides military connections, Jay?
Well, my uncle actually was a Cold Warrior, so I guess he would be the most likely candidate. He actually was Air Force intelligence, back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, really?
And he was offered a Pentagon thing. So the story is, but he turned it down because he didn't want to live in Washington D.C. He was like a woodsman kind of guy. He liked to hunt and fish, and he would be a hunting and fishing guide kind of guy. He would rather do that than work in some cubicle in the Pentagon. So he did his military Air Force intelligence service during the Cold War, fought the Russians, and then, as far as I know, he retired. But he's been dead for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I guess anybody can make something out of that, or make something out of. I don't know. I mean, my dad was in the military too, so I guess that makes me a military family. And but again, he was enlisted and went to officers candidate school after he was enlisted. But
did he? Okay.
Nothing involved in any kind of. And he was he's not career. He got out, became a cop. But I don't know. I'm just open about my background. I don't have anything that.
Right. And I also try to be open about my views of things too, which I think is, people this one guy today was saying that. So I interviewed Dugin, right? So that means that I'm connected to a Russian espionage ring or something. But I mean, I'm pretty open about my political or religious views, so I don't know why there's any need to. Consider that there's something secretive going on. Why would you somebody was asking me? So what do you say to this? How dare you have this Russian Putin advisor on? And I was like, well, I mean, I'll tell you my views on things. I tend to agree with the Russian perspective in a lot of cases. So.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words,
philosophically speaking, a lot of the philosophy of what their positions are and all that, you agree with that, right? Yeah.
Right, or even sometimes the 2008 crisis, I tend to believe that the West was wrong and that where Russia was framed in that situation. So what? I mean, in other words, there's no need to presume a secretive sort of relationship when I'll just openly tell you what my views are. This person was trying to say, this person was positing that Alexander Dugin runs the alt-right, and that I work with Alex Jones and Richard Spencer and Steve Bannon. I didn't even know who Steve Bannon was until the Trump campaign, and whoever else is supposed to be alt-righters. Because I went on Red Ice too. So I guess what I'm getting at is when people start to sort of weave the tapestries and you see it from the perspective of having the tapestries woven about you. I mean, 5 years ago, yes, I could see somebody. I would have probably been suspicious. I would think, oh, maybe this guy's connected to this person. But then when you actually live these things and you meet people, I've met Mark Hackard. Mark Hackard's a great guy. We hung out in person for a day. Jamie met him too. We had a great time. I don't think he's a nefarious character. Who else have I've met several of the independent media people over the last several years. I've met Dr. Joseph Farrell. I don't agree with a lot of the views of these people, but I don't know. I mean, I also just, I guess what I'm saying is when you meet people and when you socialize and you get to know people. I didn't know you. I met you, right? I mean, could I have been suspicious? I could have been suspicious of Chris. I don't know about this guy, but I met you and we hung out. In my experience, people that I've met that I think might be operatives, they tend to be pretty cartoonish. They tend to be pretty obvious.
Yeah, you met some suspected operatives when you went up to the. Didn't you go up around the Bundy Ranch thing when they had all the thing and kind of check that all out?
Yeah, I think that Blaine Cooper guy was a pretty obvious Fed. I mean, he's like cartoonishly acting like it on his YouTube videos. He's like shooting the Koran and throwing bacon on it and acting like a fool. I mean, this is so obviously a provocateur, right? And the guy has a criminal record, a fake name. I mean, it's, but I don't know. I guess I don't mean to be droning on about this. I think you really sell yourself short if you have an overly suspicious attitude. So what I was trying to tell this person was, you don't really have to concoct a tapestry of secret alt-right Russian agents when I'll sit here and tell you that, look, I don't agree with Alex Jones on this. I don't agree with Alexander Dugin on this point, but I do like him on this other point. I didn't even know who Steve Bannon was until the Trump campaign. So, I mean, do you ever hear Alex Jones promote me? Do you ever hear me do I ever share Alex Jones articles? No, not for years. So, to concoct these sort of elaborate, it's just funny to be on the other side of things and having people say, you do this, you work for these people, and you do this, and it's just weird.
Yeah, like it's really suspicious, but you gotta have some discernment and look at what are the connections, and then again, like what are you saying or what am I saying? I mean, I put this out there as and I have these open calls. People can call in, and it's like if they want to confront me on something, then it's open to people to confront me on what I'm saying. Like if I'm putting out disinformation, I'd be willing to discuss it with anybody. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, most of the time, people that are saying that stuff are not going to actually reach out and ask you, and that's what happened in this case. I was like, all this person had to do was ask me what I believe or message me. I tend to reply to most messages still.
But then instead, put out stuff that is designed to raise suspicions about you, and just putting out these things that would tend to imply something that's not there or suggest something that's not there. Like you're in with the Russians, and you're going to. But for what purpose, though? I mean, then what will you be saying that is going to support the Russians and opposite? Because
this person who is an Islamic apologist that believes that Russia works together with Trump and that there's going to be some sort of crackdown on all Muslims, and that it's this very wild sort of conspiracy view. And I don't know, it's just so, it's very strange. I mean, he's been on a lot of shows, podcasts. Otherwise, it's David Livingstone. It's the guy, which I wasn't really familiar with until one of his acolytes was just sort of asking me all these questions, and he's like, "Why is David going after you?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what this guy's all about." Well, it turns out he's a Muslim apologist, and he thinks that the alt-right is this thing that's run by Russia and Alexander Dugin, and which is the conspiracy theory of CNN. But
oh yeah.
All I'm trying, but you don't even have to concoct this conspiracy theory. Like everybody I know that might be considered alt-right, they openly state their views. Like there's not a secret cabal. Like Andy Nowicki, okay? Andy goes on Boiler Room and he co-founded alt-right with Richard Spencer. Andy is a Catholic traditional guy, and Andy now, tends to be a lot more open to conspiracy stuff, and I think that's because we have a lot of friends in the same sort of circles. So if I have the opportunity to talk to Andy and to meet us at Boiler Room and other shows that expose him to stuff, I send him stuff from you guys. So is that dangerous? I don't think so. I mean, if I go on red ice, I've said the same thing I've said every time I've gone on red ice. And in fact, so the first time I went on red ice, Henrik was like, I think a lot of these Islamic terror attacks are real. And I was like, I don't think so. And the last time I went on red ice, Henrik plays the video from Bell Pottinger that admits that they staged all these videos. So what I'm getting at is just that, do you want to have the ear of people, and try to better educate people? You know what I'm saying? Like if I can talk to Roman Bernard and argue with him, which I did over false flags, I'm going to do that, and I did that. If I have the opportunity to talk to Richard Spencer, and I did, I'm going to talk to him about the conspiracy angle, because he tends to not really care about that. I guess what I'm saying is we don't have to be dominated by fear. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be afraid that, like, all these people are out to get you and that they're going to sabotage you, and you know what I mean?
Or they're going to disinform you so that it sways you over to the Russian side or something, or you're gonna be unwittingly duped, because you have to, no matter what, you have to filter it, whatever you're taking in as far as information. You have to put it through your filters and say, well, is this disinformation, or is this good information, or is this person, are they pushing some sort of agenda or something like that? No matter what, I recommend that people do it, listening to me or listening to anybody else. They have to, like, well, what is, I could be accused of being I can hear maybe people accusing me of being a leftist, or, because of certain positions that I agree with would be typical of a leftist position, but I'm not a leftist. I'm not, or, it's just a matter of someone's interpretation. And then, so of course, then you got people that don't even listen to what you're saying, and they already have some prejudgment going in, and they'll just dismiss you as a kook or whatever for holding certain beliefs. You got all kinds of different types out there, but it's what it comes down to is each individual has to process the information however they're going to process it, and then they're going to have to come to their own conclusions. And then, if there's something out there that is you have determined is misinformation or disinformation, you just have to deal with that in some way, other than, I think a bad way to do it is just go out independently and then try to undermine somebody instead of confronting them. Either, like you're saying, you respond to your emails, somebody's sending you something, hey, what about this? You'll respond back, or on Facebook or something like that. But yeah, there's just a lot of this infighting and stuff that goes on, and of course, and then there's always this it's just a distraction, really. I mean, it to me, that's why you don't hear me getting into any of this stuff at all. And there's so much of it out there too. It's like even among these YouTubers that have like a few thousand subscribers, and they're kind of infighting among themselves, like, oh, like this guy's a shill and he's putting out disinformation, and it's like, well, he's only got like, let's say 10,000 subscribers. I mean, that's like, how influential is this shill, and what would be the point? You know what I mean? It's that too. It's like, well, how influential is this person, and what would be the point of spending so much energy? Or is it? Are you looking at somebody that maybe has different ideas than you have, and they're just giving their own perspective? So how do you make those determinations? For me, it's just like again, it's just like what are they saying, and what do I agree with? I don't have to agree with, especially people that are really putting a lot of focus in on parsing numbers and stuff like that on everything. I don't agree with that, and I don't really get into it. But then I don't automatically dismiss somebody doing that as some sort of operative or something like that. It's just, and there's so much stuff out there right now anyway. It's just hard to sort through it all. But then, you're gonna get people you click with, and then there's gonna be people that rub you the wrong way, and then I've seen that happen so many times where somebody gets mad, and then like all of a sudden they're